We are live right now. And this is Jennifer Gillman. Thank you so much for coming on.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
I appreciate you. And of course, I'm going to have to tell you a lawyer story, not a joke, but a lawyer story because Jennifer's a lawyer. Well, no, are you a recovering lawyer? That's what you say on your...
Yeah, somebody was teasing me the other day. I'm probably all recovered by now. It's been a while.
So tell everybody what you do, and then I'll say why I thought you'd be a good guest for the audience.
Sure. So I practiced law for 12 years, and I actually enjoyed it quite a lot. But I had one child at the time who I didn't get to see when she was awake. I only got to see her sometimes on the weekends when I wasn't working. And that didn't seem to be a really good way to raise a child. And I was working in private practice at a law firm in a city, and we lived in a suburb. So the travel time took a long time. We were in New Jersey and I was in New York City for work. And so I thought if I could get a job in New Jersey and it was with a company where the hours were, more predictable, then I could work around it better. So I was actually in the process of interviewing for a role that I liked at a Japanese pharmaceutical company when another recruiter contacted me to see if I wanted to apply for that job. And I said, I do like that job, but I already had 3 rounds of interviews and I'm getting ready to meet with the general counsel. They're trying to schedule that now. And he said, oh, wow, the candidate that I sent only made it through 1 round. I should have sent you instead. You were better. Why don't we have lunch and I'll tell you about some other roles I'm working on. So, okay, sure. And then during the lunch, the entire time, all he did was try and convince me to be a recruiter at his agency.
Oh,
I was so surprised. And he said, well, look, you're talking about how you have a child and you want to have another child. And this is totally under your control. The schedule is flexible. You can use all of the contacts you have from being a lawyer, all of your knowledge of the legal industry. It's a great way to leverage what you've already done with your career in a way that you can be around for your kids. Just give me 2 weeks. That's all I need, 2 weeks. And I did eventually when I got down to the top 3 for that Japanese pharmaceutical company, but they chose someone else.
Oh.
And I was a little disappointed, but I decided to give him the 2 weeks that he wanted. And it never felt like a job. It always felt like I was being paid to get to know people and make new friends and try and put them together with people they would enjoy working with. And it really was flexible and it allowed me to be around when my kids were smaller. And I was really grateful for that.
So you help lawyers that aren't necessarily a good fit where they are now find a law firm that is a better fit for them.
Very well said.
Oh, okay. I hope I got that.
We did kind of a variety of things, and we were more client facing. So we were more about the law firm that had an opening or the corporate company that had an opening. And we were getting people on the phone or meeting them in person, trying to convince them that they wanted to go to that place. And I had trouble with that because I'd be on the phone with you and you'd say, yeah, that's not quite what I'm interested in. What I'm looking for is, and we could have a 2-hour conversation about it. And I would go out and find it for you. And the guy who ran the company was a little frustrated with that because he's like, we have this opening. We just have to convince her to go there. We can't convince her to go there because it's a whole career that she's going to have. Right. And if she goes there and it's not the right place, it's not going to be good for us either. We want her to be happy and do a good job and be a good lawyer and have nice thoughts about us because karma really works.
Right. So when you came up with your own firm, you decided to represent the lawyer, not the firm.
Yes. So I started working with just partners that had their own clients because he said, well, at least they are a source of revenue to the firm that they're going to join. So we
Right.
don't have to wait until there's an opening. You can market those people if you want to. And I was having some success with it, but it takes longer and it's less, it's more of a risk. And he was uncomfortable with the risk. And I wanted to brand and advertise and specialize in just that. And we just reached an impasse. So about 3 years ago, I spun off and I started Gillman Strategic Group, where I work, we call it candidate facing. So I represent that lawyer or that group or that small firm that wants to join a larger firm. And that's all I do. So I got to carve out the one part of my job that I enjoyed the best. And since I run the company, I get to say no to the things that I don't enjoy doing.
Now, see, I love that because that makes so much sense that if you concentrate on the person instead of the firm, it's going to be a better fit. So you're representing the person looking for the right firm instead of the firm trying to shove a person in. See, I love that. I think that's perfect.
And since they're moving with their own clients or they have a way of bringing clients to the new firm, it's a source of revenue for the new firm. So it's kind of like if I was a buyer's agent for real estate and somebody came to me and said, I have an unlimited budget, but I want all these things on my wish list. And sometimes they're hard, like a helipad on the roof or a bowling alley in the basement, or
Right.
it's totally unrealistic, like something that would never be in a house. I want a spaceship in my house. I can't. For somebody who says I want to work 1 hour a day and make $10 million a year, that's
Right.
work out. But to the extent that it's something that can be found, the people that I work with are bringing money to the firm, and they're very experienced lawyers with a really great skill set that really offers something of value to the firm. So the firm wants to say yes to as many things as they can, and we can talk about, which are the firms that can meet that wish list that they've put together, and then set up some of those meetings for them.
See, that's awesome. And I always said this before we went live, but you work with rainmakers, which is awesome. They tend to throw around in direct sales, they call them heavy hitters, or I'm sure they do in other places too. Right. It's the same thing, right? Yeah. Yeah. I like to think of myself as a heavy hitter. I'm not sure whether the other people do or not, but that's not my
I'm
problem.
sure they do. I've heard a little about you already.
Oh, it's because you're listening to Bob. Well, Bob wanted me to say something to you. This is hilarious. I get it, and I wasn't even in on the joke, and I think it's funny. Bob says he adores you, but he says only with your permission. If that doesn't make you feel unsafe or uncomfortable in any way, and only if you're okay with him using those exact words.
Would you like to hear why he said that?
Yes, I can imagine, but I'd love to hear the story anyway. Go ahead.
So when I was a practicing attorney, I was the labor and employment attorney, and employment lawyers are very concerned about whether people are always comfortable. So I was very fortunate to be able to attend a mastermind 2-day meeting with Bob in Jupiter, Florida. And I always carry around one of those Tide pens in case I spill something on myself. That happens a lot. So I always have one. And Bob got something on his shirt during lunch, and I said, "Oh wait, I have a Tide pen. I can help." And I jump up and I have my Tide pen, and he's like, "Okay, do it." I'm like, "But it's on you. Like I can't just touch someone." Here, you do it.
It's like
He said, "No, I don't know how to use it. You've used this before, right?" "Oh yeah, I use it all the time." He's like, "Well, then do it for me." And I said, "Well, do you feel comfortable? Because I'm going to have to pump the Tide pen, and then I'm going to have to rub at the stain, and it's on your chest. So I'm going to be touching you." And he said, "Now I see you were a lawyer."
Oh.
Didn't get the stain out of his shirt, I would like to say.
Oh, that's cute, though. That's funny. Not all lawyers. It would have to be lawyers that deal with human resources lawyers. That would be more.
there, I dealt with a lot of training for the sexual harassment kind of litigation and that kind of thing, where we talked about how to make sure that nobody felt uncomfortable in the workplace and that sort of thing. So it's sort of ingrained still, even though I haven't practiced in 13 years. My husband is still a labor and employment lawyer, so I still hear some of it in the background.
No, the story I wanted to tell you, and it's short, I'll keep it short, but I think you'll think it's funny, but it's so not, it's so not acceptable for a little bit off color, but not bad, not bad. Okay, so I have a regular lawyer that I deal with for, real estate wills and stuff. But when I went to go get divorced the second time, don't judge, I didn't realize that firm, they had a lawyer that does that. So then I met a different lawyer, but it was the same firm and all that. But when I went in to get the final paperwork, the receptionist didn't know that I knew the divorce lawyer guy. So I was talking to her and she thought I was here to see the real estate lawyer guy. And then the divorce lawyer guy came in and said, "Lisa, so good to see you here." So the receptionist said, "I didn't know you knew Lisa." And the divorce lawyer said, "I'm the man that put the smile back on Lisa's face." I know it. We all just fell about the room. It was hilarious. I just thought that was hilarious. Slightly off color, but
only slightly. That was
right. Isn't that cute? I thought he was cute that way. Yeah, that was cute. Yeah, he was so right. He was. But yeah, I'm good at some stuff, but the married thing is not one of them. Anyway, you know what I think is valuable for our audience, even though most of the people that watch Monday Morning Madness are entrepreneurial women, in particular in direct sales, because I am, but we do recruiting. And why I especially loved what you're saying is because I think we get into the habit in direct sales. I don't mean everybody, but by and large, where we're just working for that company prize or whatever it is, and we just sign up anybody. We're not interviewing, we're not being selective, we're not thinking of them first. And I think that we should take a chapter from your playbook and try to see what's best for that person. Sometimes that person needs to just be a customer. Talking them into signing up is not a fit for everybody. So do you think that we play by the same rules, kind of? Do you see how that would be the same?
I think so. It's always hard to turn someone away who seems like they qualify for what it is you're looking for. So when I work with my rainmaker candidates, if I'm talking with somebody who has millions of dollars in portable business and they tell me they want to move to another firm, that's enticing, right? That's how I earn money. But I do spend a lot of my time finding out why somebody really wants to move. And sometimes the answer is they can fix it at their firm where they already work. It's something that they haven't tried to address there, and it is a fixable situation, or they have an unrealistic expectation of something. I spoke with two different law firm partners who approached me, who I know socially a little bit because we volunteer on committees together. They both came and they said it's a little uncomfortable because we don't usually talk about business and money, but I think I might be underpaid. And I wanted to just run it by you because you know a little more about the market than I do. And I talked with both of them, and one of them really was underpaid. And he could have probably earned about twice as much just moving at all, not even
Whoa.
moved. And when I explained that to him, he was talking about how, oh gosh, some of my other partners are in the same boat. Maybe we could make a group and we could all move together. And I was getting very excited about that because they all had a lot of clients that wanted to move with them. And they were all had so much potential because they were really underpaid, and I could make them so happy by getting them the right salary, and it would earn some money for my company too. And it turns out that their firm realized that they were feeling that way and offered them bonuses that were larger than their salaries. So then they got to the point where they were kind of made whole. I couldn't recommend that he leave. He at the time had two young children, and he had built up a lot of goodwill at that firm, and they were very flexible with his schedule when there were things with the kids, and he felt like he still had some more room to grow there. So even though they hadn't adjusted his salary, and it was a little unclear what the bonus would be the next year, it still made sense for him to stay, and I understood that. But the other person that came to me explained her situation, and she had the wrong idea. It was just she had this much business and she got paid that much for it, and then her business grew a certain amount and her salary didn't grow in proportion to how the business grew. And she thought, oh gosh, I hope they're not taking advantage of me because I'm a woman. Maybe they think I won't complain. A lot of women in bigger law firms kind of don't speak up all the time and get every dollar they can. So she tells me the numbers, and I said it nicer to her, but she used to be grossly overpaid and now she's moderately overpaid. So
Oh. Well, at least she knows, though.
I said, well, that's a really generous compensation package. And in fact, I don't think I would be able to equal it if you moved somewhere else. So if you're really unhappy, there are things other than money that people care about. It's not all about the dollars, but I hear you talking about money. I don't hear you talking about the rest. She said, well, actually, they put me on the executive committee and they made me an equity partner, and I'm co-head of my group, and I feel really supported here. I really like it. I just felt bad because I felt like maybe they were trying to underpay me. Now that I know that I'm paid correctly and even very generously, I can stay here and feel happier about it. And I said, that's great. I mean, so we're not always about trying to move people around. And some of the people I talk to who are desperately unhappy, it's not their firm that's making them unhappy. They don't like being lawyers. Not everybody likes the job they have. And I actually have some really great resources set up to refer them to coaches who help recovering lawyers find another career.
Recovery.
And sometimes they would really enjoy being a lawyer in a different capacity, being a lawyer in-house for a company or for a government job or teaching law at a law school or a university. And I have some resources that I can point them toward for that. But, for the people that I'm really looking at, we talk about what they're looking for, what's making you unhappy now. How do you think that might change somewhere else? What are you looking for? What do you need? What's a deal breaker for you? What are some nice to haves? And we try very hard to get as close to that wish list as possible, but we always remind them that it's not always about the money. Sometimes they're looking for other things, and I have to be very cognizant of I'm there to make sure they make the best choice because I get paid based on how much money I get for them. Right. And a lot of times I'm in a position of really recommending the firm that doesn't pay the most because that really is the best match. And I have to remember that this is their career. This is their life. Right. A couple extra dollars for me isn't the same as making the wrong choice for them. So we really are very careful to, and it's not up to me to choose for them, but sometimes they ask. Sometimes they say, what would you do? Which one do you think I should choose? We get down to 2 or 3 offers that they're really serious about. And it's very nice that they value my opinion that much. And it's very important that I steer them in the right direction. And it's also important that when I talk to people who are just like mildly curious about the market and we talk a lot more and I discover that they're pretty happy where they are, that I just tell them, it sounds like you're pretty happy where you are. What prompted this call? Why are we talking now? And sometimes it's, oh, my friend just got a new job and I was a little bit curious, or I had to work late last night and I got a little annoyed, so I scheduled this call, or something like that. But it's not an endemic long-term kind of problem. It's just for a passing thought, and they're really better off staying where they are, even though we make money when they move. That must
be where your go-giver background comes in, though, is that you're more apt to think about what's best for them instead of your commission.
I tried very hard to make sure that I always recommend something that I would do for myself or recommend to my best friend or closest family member, because even though we lose out on a lot of commissions that way, I like to feel like people appreciate being
Oh,
treated
yeah.
and me acting as more of a trusted advisor than somebody who's trying to sell them something. And a lot of times those same people either come back and become candidates another time or become a client. They stay at their firm and they hire other people from us, or they recommend a friend. So it probably in the long run becomes helpful. In the short run, sometimes it's a little disappointing in the moment.
But for my ladies and gentlemen watching, we have Tamara from Michigan and Teresa from New Hampshire and Kathy from Texas, and we have somebody from Georgia, and Sharon's on. We are in that same boat if you guys think about this, because sometimes we get caught talking people into signing up that we shouldn't, and we know we shouldn't, but we're looking at the little prize the company's offering. But we should put that person's interest first of whether they'd be a good fit to come into the company or not, because it never in the long run is a good idea to sign somebody up that isn't into it, that isn't a good fit. To me, they don't stay and they get burned out. And I was going to ask you that, how do you, I do have this happen to me quite a bit, and probably because I'm a heavy hitter, I hope. I like to think in my company, but I have people approach me and tell me that they are big producers and want me to spend money on them when they first start in the business, want me to spend time with them. And I don't have a way to verify that, or they say they're coming from another company and that they're a big producer. Most of the time they don't, though. That's not been my example. So I'm thinking to myself, when you have somebody come to you, how do you know if they genuinely have that kind of portable business that can be moved with them? Do you make them prove it, or how? Because I don't have a way to make somebody that comes up to me, I have to take their word for it. So what I do is I say, show me. Show me you can sell some stuff. Because I'm not just going to invest a bunch of money in you because you say at another company you were a big producer. I need to see you producing here, which sounds cold, but that's what I do.
That's a good idea. I don't know if I'm in a position to say, show me that you can go out there and get a client. But what
Oh
I
no, but I mean, how do they prove to you that they have that? Yeah, that
yeah,
they have that kind of business that'll go with them? How do you know for sure that'll happen?
well, I found that people sometimes talk a big game, but they won't write
Mm.
down the big game because they're lawyers and they don't like to put anything in writing that they don't feel
Oh,
comfortable with. So I once got burned many, many years ago, and there was a guy who had $2 million in business, about $2 million in business, a little over $2 million in business. It's around 2 million over and over. He said the same. And then later in the process, after a lot of, some rounds of interviews have been done, there's a document that the firm will ask the candidate to fill out. It's called a lateral partner questionnaire, or an LPQ. And they have to, in that document, write about their clients and what the collections were year over year, usually about 3-year period, how much they built out and what actually got collected. That's called realization. So the realization, different things like that. And they had to put that all into writing and sign it. And when he was faced with that, he had about $200,000 in business, not about 2 million. And that
Right.
made me look really not so good, because I've been talking about 2 million along with him the whole time. And he had been through like 2 or 3 rounds of interviews, and I had
Oh no.
so in order to combat that from ever happening again,
Right.
I have them put together a business plan before I will work with them. And I've explained it this way. The business plan is kind of, it's like like a narrative resume. So because partner types don't do a resume anymore, they're too big shot, they can't do it anymore. So they describe a little bit about their past experience and what their specialty area is. And then it's the part that's about the numbers, like who are, what has it been for about 3 years, and the billing rates and how hard to work and the realization and all of that. And then the last part is what are you looking for in that next firm, and how will you use that new platform to usually to grow your business a little bit more? And sometimes people are like, I'm too busy, I can't do that. And I've gotten to
No,
the point
red flag, red
where I
flag, right?
say, yeah, you know what? It's only going to help you because it's all the information you're going to talk about in the first 2 rounds of interviews and the information that you have to write about in the lateral partner questionnaire. So none of this is wasted. You're getting prepared so that once we get started in the process, you can move forward without any delays. And I'm sorry, we can't work together unless you can fill this out. And we even have a done for you service now where they can pay a fee and work with a business development coach to just speak it and have him write it up for them to decide whether it's something they can sign or not, because that's keeping them from it. But I'm like, I can't move forward. And every time I've made an exception, and sadly, I still sometimes make exceptions, and
It's
it
been come back to bite you.
always comes back to bite me. There was a guy who had so many millions of dollars of business. He said, well, I'll put together a paragraph. I don't have time for a whole. And he did put together a paragraph, and I believe him. He really did have that business, but he wasn't all in. You know, somebody who won't
Yeah.
take the time to put together a business plan that's only a couple of pages long, he wasn't all in. So he eventually decided to stay at his firm and didn't really explore the market like we could have. And I think the people who are putting together that business plan have shown that they're pretty interested in seeing some alternatives. Sometimes the alternatives help them to realize that what they have at their own firm isn't as bad as they thought. And sometimes the alternatives help them to realize they're going to wait for something better. And sometimes they go to one of them. But I think that the ones who are willing to do that one step of the business plan are more of our ideal candidates to work with. So we try to be pretty tough on making them do it before we move forward.
You know, the other thing I was thinking is just because a lawyer claims a customer or a client or however you want to say it and puts them down on the list and stuff, who's to say the customer will be comfortable moving with the lawyer? Can't the customer say, no, I'm staying with the firm?
That's
That
very
doesn't necessarily mean, right, that they would go with them.
Well, that's why law firms that are having you fill out a lateral partner questionnaire will often ask, you know, they want to make sure it's not just one big client, because what if that one big client goes out of business or doesn't come with you or something happens?
Right.
And they want to know sometimes how long you've had the relationship with the client. Like, here's your 3 years of collections, but
Oh,
when
right.
did you meet that client? Oh, well, I've represented that client for 20 years, for 15 years. I've moved twice to different firms, and that
Oh, okay.
with me. Those kind of questions. But you're right. There really is not a way, because ethical obligations in most states
Mhm.
preclude a lawyer from directly asking. So I can't say, hey, Lisa, I'm going to this other firm. Are you set to come with me? So sometimes
Ooh,
the ethical obligations allow you to talk about it hypothetically. Hey, Lisa,
yeah.
I've really enjoyed working with you so much. I hope if I ever went somewhere else that you would still want to work with me, even if I wasn't at the same firm anymore. Some lawyers are even about that. So the firms that hire these heavy hitters or rainmakers sometimes shave a little off the total, because they say,
I
everybody
know.
who says they're moving $1 million really ends up with 850.
Yeah.
Everybody who says 2 million ends up with 175, whatever it is. And then if you're the lawyer that said 1 million and you really bring 1,200,000, you get a bonus at the end. So it's not like you.
Oh, yeah. And for those of you that are in network marketing direct sales with me, um, what comes up a lot for us is that people believe that just because you have a big team, they will follow you if you change companies. And I have found that not to be true. A very small percent will follow you. So don't live in the dream that everyone loves you and will follow you. That is not the case. Lots of people are in it because they like the company itself or whatever it is. And you are a nice side benefit, but you're not necessarily the show. so they're not going to go wherever you go. That's what made me think of it in your case. By the way,
I think it goes for lawyers a little bit too, because sometimes the client is using a lot of different lawyers at your firm for a lot of different types of
yeah,
matters. So real estate and litigation and IP and other things, and you're the corporate lawyer. So
yeah,
will they follow you to another firm and leave all their work at a different place? Is that too annoying for them? Is it, it really will depend a lot of times on how close that personal relationship is
right,
and how much they've liked your work. A lot of times they're not really hiring the firm, they're hiring the person because they work
yeah,
so closely together. And what's interesting is there are no non-compete agreements for lawyers, so they can change jobs every day if they want
good.
to. And it's meant to protect the right of the client to use any lawyer he or she would like to use. But you're right, sometimes the clients do stay with the first firm and they don't follow the lawyer.
Yeah, I bet that's an issue. Yeah, and I was just thinking that because sometimes I've seen that happen with us. But I think a lot of the leaders believe that everyone will follow them and take the advice or whatever. And that's, yeah, don't bank on that. My bestie from Ireland, Janet Leonard's on, by the way. Hi, Janet. And we have somebody on from Illinois. And somebody else said on here, I had a so called big producer. See, this happens to the leaders in direct sales a lot. They never produced one sale. They talk, and say, oh, I did amazing things over at this other company. But to me, I always like, well, do amazing things here. And that's how you get my attention is do something amazing, not talk about what amazing things you did somewhere else.
I
But
once spoke to a client who's very, very nervous now, a law firm that I've placed partners with, and they make people jump through hoops and provide a lot of information like tax returns to show what they were really earning, things like that. And we were once talking about it, and they said, yeah, it all goes back to the one guy. He said he was going to bring like $2.5–3 million worth of work,
and he
and
didn't bring
they didn't,
anything.
he was just sitting in his office doing nothing, and they're wondering what's going on. And the marketing person goes over to his office and says, oh, we're going to send out the announcements that move firms. I need your list. And he said, oh, yeah, here's my client list. They're like, yeah, but who are the people that we're sending it to? Just look it up on Google. They're like, well, do you know people at these companies that you've worked with before? We want to send those people the announcement that you've moved to
Yeah.
a firm, not just a generic person who works at the company. And when they probed further, they realized that he had just made up the whole thing.
Oh,
He, I don't know if he had any business at all, but he never brought any to that firm.
oh. See, that's what I was afraid that
Yeah,
because
well,
when that
firms are
happens to
much
us, we're
more
talking
careful
about
now.
less money.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think it would happen so much. I mean, most firms, they weigh the risk a little bit. They ask for certain documents that would show what they really did in the past and what their
Right.
relationships are going forward. But you can't make a client come with you, even a
Right.
client that
Right.
intended to come with you, if the first firm gives them a real incentive to stay. Once in a while, it doesn't happen. I think that firms are more and more careful, and sometimes they don't pay everything guaranteed up front. There's a draw with some bonuses that they will get if they actually bring the business with them, or
Mhm.
there are ways of doing it, and it's only guaranteed for the first year. So some of these firms are large enough that they take a risk on the first year, and if it doesn't pan out and the person never brings anything, you can at least adjust their compensation going forward to reflect that they didn't bring that $3 million in business, they said.
Oh, yeah, I can. Yeah, we're talking about the pitfalls a little too much, aren't we?
There are a lot of nice things, though. There are a lot of people who are, stuck at 1 million or 2 million at a firm where they're not getting the right support or resources, that know that they can do even more if they were somewhere else. And it's really fun to get to see that happen.
I was very excited to see that you got named in the top 25 entrepreneurial women in New Jersey. That's awesome.
So that was
Good for
really
you.
exciting. There are a
And that's
lot
not
of
just in your
really
niche.
exciting people. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not your niche. That's the whole shooting match. That's awesome.
Thank you.
And you do a lot of networking. I see that you're in BNI.
I am. I just finished being president, and we have a great new president now. And I run my own networking group, and I participate in a lot of them, some that are in the legal industry and some that are just more general. It's been great to have these kind of platforms during the pandemic because it's allowed me to
Right.
talk with a lot of people when I would have been at home when there weren't so many in-person networking events happening. And now some of them are getting back to being in person too.
I heard BNI in particular had a big boom because they went Zoom for their meetings. Was that true in your area too?
Well, we went to Zoom. We only missed 1 week. We missed one
Oh,
meeting and we went right to Zoom. And
wow.
we were able to keep most of our members and attract some new ones, even during the pandemic. But then we did lose some members as things dragged on a little bit more, people who were in industries that were the hardest hit.
No, yeah.
We had a couple of people lose their jobs and not have somebody to sponsor them anymore and that sort of thing. But we ended up at about the same level because we had attracted some new members. But it's a great organization. I mean, they were able to mobilize very quickly, and there are a lot of benefits to having to be somewhere, even in the midst of a shutdown during a pandemic. It was nice to be expected somewhere.
Did you by and large feel that your sector of the industry took a big hit during the pandemic or no?
Not really. A lot of the big law firms did better than they ever had before
Of
because
course they did.
they didn't have any expenses. So there's no business travel, no
Of course they
conferences,
did, right?
no lunches, nothing. Everybody worked from home. And when they
And
gave
then
up
they
their
saved
3 hours,
money. Yeah,
they
they saved money, right?
and they got people to bill more because when they didn't have to commute 3 hours a day, even if they only put 1 hour of that commuting time toward working, there was an uptick in how many hours
Whereas
all
they
were
billed.
working. The expenses went down and the demand was very high because there were a lot of companies that needed a lot of help during the pandemic. And it's just been crazy. There just aren't enough people to go around for some of the specialty areas that firms are stealing from each other and trying to get them to come back. There was a first-year associate who got $150,000 signing bonus, and now
Whoa.
he's the talk of the town. And then 6 months later, the same firm gave a different associate a $250,000 signing bonus.
Wow.
These
Wow.
there aren't enough of these corporate type associates to do all the M&A deals that are happening. It's a little
Right.
tricky now.
As a person, I had to deal with the court system for a name change during the thing. That was the states don't have their, at least my state. I live in rural New Hampshire though, but they don't have their websites that are easy to use. And when I said, "Hey man, this isn't easy to use," they acted like, "What are you, an idiot?" I'm like, "Well, actually, I'm not an idiot. So you're actually have an unusable website here, buddy." But yeah, and then it was funny because what they wanted me to pay online, but it was like an endless loop of not being able to do it. And it wasn't, I pay lots of stuff online, so it wasn't me. And yeah, they finally were like, "Oh, you're old enough that you want to send a check." No, your website's bad.
Oh, your website is terrible.
But I did finally get it accomplished. But yeah, that was a whole rigmarole. And of course, it was something, an easy thing. So the law firm I used didn't want to deal with it. They're like, "You can do that yourself, really." So, because they're busy
I
doing
have
other
to
stuff.
say, the firms that had the best tech that were ready to work in the cloud and could have people working remotely did the best right up front. I mean, all of the law firms ended up okay in the end, but in March and April of 2020, the firms that were ready, the firms that everyone had a laptop and they had a VPN system or some kind of cloud-based system, they were able to keep going. I opened my first Zoom account. I was lucky enough to I belong to a group coaching program for female entrepreneurs. And I was lucky enough that we had our quarterly meeting on March 9th and 10th in Stamford, Connecticut. So I was there live, and at the last minute, I was like, should I go or not? There's this coronavirus thing. And I just brought my Purell with me and took my chances. I don't even know about that. But the coach was telling us to get ready and look into this thing called Zoom because it would help us keep going with our meetings. And I was challenging her, saying, I meet with everyone in person. I never just talk on the phone or something like that. I always meet everybody in person. I'm not going to be able to do that. And she said, well, they're talking about 2 week shutdown. But what if it's 3 weeks? With no meetings for 3 weeks. What if it's 4 weeks, Jennifer? What if for 4 weeks you can't have any meetings?
No one knew. Oh my God.
The Zoom thing. And I came home, I bought my groceries, did what I had to do with my kids with the homeschooling and all of that. And then I was bored because I used to spend so much time networking in person. So we looked into this Zoom thing, and thankfully I have somebody on my team who helped me set up a networking thing. And we started on March 24th doing, an open networking on Zoom. And we had no idea it would be a lifetime commitment.
I was very lucky that I live in rural New Hampshire, but I have team members nationwide. So we've been doing some version of that for quite a while. But because I knew, matter of fact, I wonder if I'm sure you do, because you have a lot of different skills that you could do something else at the turn of I know, because you wouldn't continue to be networking if you didn't. But like, I have backup plans in case, I don't know, either my industry or my company or whatever it is changes direction without me. So I have a bunch of backup plans. But so in your industry, I'm sure, what is your backup plan? I'm just wondering if you do that, if you think that way or you don't.
Well, my mom, I could always go back to practicing law, even though I've had a 13-year hiatus.
But you wouldn't want to, right? But you could, right? So you're keeping up with your license.
I think that I could do, I think that most of what we do for people when we're finding them that exact right perfect fit and speaking about what they're really looking for is kind of a form of career counseling. So I would just take that a little bit further and coach people who are changing jobs to figure out what it is that's making them unhappy and what they're looking for, and if a change in company is really going to be the answer for them, or if it's a change in career or change in mindset, or sometimes it's just something else. It's not, I hear from people, I need a new firm. Okay, what don't you like? I hate lawyers. I hate judges. I hate reading, I hate writing. I hate keeping track of my time. I hate that. I hate clients. Okay, so when you go to this other firm, this mythical purple,
they have all those things too.
That I'm supposed to find for you. Is it not to have any of those things? Do you think we're I guess not. Well, you don't like being a lawyer.
And what's funny, that relates to us over here in, believe it or not, direct sales, because people are always looking at the other companies thinking there's a better deal somewhere else. Yeah. And usually, matter of fact, one of the speakers in our industry, is his name, they call him Big Al, but it's Tom Schreider. And he says, all companies have problems. You just need to pick which company you want to have your problems with. Exactly. So, and that's true, not just in this industry, that's true with probably all industries.
In every industry. I remember when I was still practicing law, I switched firms so that I could focus just on labor and employment and not a mix of things anymore. And when I first started, I was having lunch with everybody because they were welcoming me to the firm, just the associates, so the lower level lawyers and myself. And they were saying, oh, we heard that you had to go meet with this person and that person. And they were all glad because I was the newest one. I had to be put on cases with these two partners that were like really hard to work with, and everybody didn't like them. And I'm still in touch with both of them now because I liked them. Everybody has their own unique set of circumstances, their own unique likes and dislikes. So when somebody else looks at your firm and says, oh, it's just the same as that firm, being a law firm partner at a different firm is very unique. So it's really a matter of, the firm where everybody says, oh yeah, they work hard, play hard. Well, I like to go home and have some quiet time after work. I don't like to go out drinking, or, oh, it's a firm where they have work-life balance. We all go to each other's little league games and school shows. Well, I don't have kids. I'm not really, like everybody has their own unique thing that they're looking for. And even something that sounds really great on its face is not a great fit for each individual. So that's what we always try and focus on.
Yeah, that's really neat though. So I did look up some other things about you, and one of the things, and I said this in the
You find my brisket recipe. I thought that was confidential. It's very
I'm
good.
surprisingly no, but I did find on LinkedIn, which made me like you already, by the way. Joe Zeman referred to you as the connector from the Go Giver. That is actually, when someone says that about me, I find that to be like one of the highest compliments on the face of the universe. How do you feel that way too?
I agree. I've read The Go Giver so many times that I'm on a new copy already. But I always, the first time I read it, I was like, I want to be the connector.
Yeah.
That's what I want to do. This is my goal. And every time someone says that to me, it's really the highest compliment anyone can pay me.
Yeah, I love that part. I love that. And yeah, I don't have the recipe yet, but how did you end up getting in even shooting for lawyers? Because your family does that? Is like you have other lawyers, or you said your mom wanted you to go back to being a lawyer? Was she like you got to be either a doctor or a lawyer? Was she one of those kind of moms, or how did that all happen to start with?
Well, I don't know if it was the same where you grew up, but when I was in grade school, we had autograph books and people would sign them. Like
Yes.
we didn't have yearbooks yet because it wasn't high school yet.
Yeah.
I found a whole bunch of them later on when my mom was cleaning out her basement. And even from a very young age, the teachers would always say, you would make such a good lawyer. You should think about law school. And I don't think I was arguing with them. I was respectful, but they always said, you can convince people to do things. You should be a lawyer. And as it happens, in our family, we did have a lot of lawyers. And my dad, who is my favorite human being, was a lawyer. And we used to always talk about, what was going on in the world and the Supreme Court case that just got decided.
Oh.
Was doing at work, and it helped that he worked in the Empire State Building. So
Whoa.
it was really fun to watch dad
Yes.
at work, and I always used to want to go. So I did see a lot of law. We do have a lot of lawyers in the family, and my family was hoping that I might think of something different. Like we would love to have somebody who's a doctor, does something in STEM or whatever. And I did win an award for science in the 6th grade. But at some point, I really preferred English and history, and I loved science, but I wasn't quite as good at math as I needed to be to go really far with science. And I kind of felt like it was decided already. It felt natural, just like being a recruiter never felt like a job. Studying in college for the things I was going to go to law school for.
Because the law school is
Law school was
unless
a little tough.
unless the paper chase is totally wrong, right? That's what we all use for a deciding factor.
Well, I'll tell you that might have been a bit of an exaggeration, but there are
No.
aspects of it that are quite similar.
Oh, I bet it's a lot of men centric, like the man village rules, right? Or not anymore.
Well, when I graduated in 1996, and it was about evenly divided between
Yeah.
men and women in the class. But actually, that's one of the things that's being looked at now in law firms. They're about equal, the men and women starting, but then when you get to the equity partner ranks, there's so many more men than women.
Yeah.
And I actually think that's one place where this pandemic is going to have a silver lining. Now that we've proven that everybody can work remotely, I could have maybe worked remotely for some of the time that my kids were really little, maybe
Yeah.
2 days a week and in the office 3 days a week. Maybe I could have spent some more time around my kids and not felt like I needed a new career. So I think that some of those women who are leaving those big law firms because it feels like you can't have a family and have that kind of job at the same time might be able to have a little bit more flexibility that way.
Oh, that's good. Yay. I was just I don't know if you've seen that movie by oh, the one yeah, now I can't remember her name. It's Gina, but the one that did Thelma and Louise, and the movie's called This Changes Everything, and it's about gender equity in Hollywood. But that's a very interesting movie if you haven't seen that one.
Oh, I
Yeah.
haven't.
Yeah, I was surprised by what they said. I guess I thought, and this probably is true in your profession too. I guess I thought in Hollywood there probably weren't enough qualified women to do those kind of jobs, is why there were more men. And that's not the case. They weren't hiring them. They were out there like directors and producers, and it's still true now. And it's like 10% directors are women when there really are a whole bunch of women to choose from.
Gosh,
It's right. It's
I'm gonna have
it's the
to
same kind of thing. So
in
I'm
law firms, part of what the issue is um, they're not keeping the women from leaving, and some of it is if you're looking to mentor someone, sometimes you're thinking about somebody who reminds you of yourself. So a lot of
oh,
white men are going to mentor
thinking white
other women,
men.
and that's why the diversity, equity, and inclusion movement is having so much trouble with lawyers of color and women making it all the way to those equity partner ranks, because part of, just like in your business, being a heavy hitter is a big deal. Part of being evaluated for a partner is whether you can attract business or keep business at your firm, so that it's not just the hours you're billing, although sometimes there are those people that are just working around the clock and they make them partner anyway. But it would be a lot easier to keep everybody and have a more diverse partnership if you helped mentor people in business development skills. And for a while, it seems like they might not have been looking at everybody for that. So there are certainly a lot of law firms that are putting a lot of time and effort into that now.
It's funny. My particular company in my industry happens to be women centric, but it's an odd problem because most of the women that are doing this business are not treating it like a business. They're treating it like a hobby, which ends up making it so that when someone's looking in and saying you're not real business owners, they're looking at all of them guys. So if you are a real business owner treating it like a business and doing big money doing it, you're not getting the same, right? Right? Which it's funny because it's almost like reverse. And I do have some big men that are in my business, because to me, sales is sales. You're going to get a percent of the sale. Men would want a percent of the sale, just like women would want a percent of the sale. So it's the same. But I find that men take it more serious, and that's so sad. I don't know, how do you feel about that? Because like I'm all into being my soapbox all the time about. I have a lot of colleagues that they'll end up alone because we're getting older and their spouse dies or runs off or whatever happens to them, and they have to support themselves, and they're not able to do it because they didn't treat this business more serious sooner, and then suddenly they can't do it. They can't fend for themselves. So I'm always on my soapbox about that. They've got a business here. I bet you probably don't even run into that in your profession, because if they're lawyers, they're probably full time and they can support themselves if they end up being by themselves.
Well, I
Right?
think we run into a similar issue sometimes. A lot of people feel like, oh, well, I don't have to get my own clients because they give me all these clients at the firm to work on. I have plenty of work to do.
Oh,
it's busy. So I don't have time to do business development activities. We have all these big clients at the firm already. They don't care if I bring my own clients or not.
Oh, but
And
they
that's
do.
fine. Right now, it's okay because everyone's so busy. All we need is somebody who has that specific experience and can work on that deal or that litigation. But this is just a bubble. It's not like this all the time. And those lawyers who are, we call them service partners, they're partners, but they're serving someone else. They only do work, they don't develop any business of their own. They're the ones who, when the music stops, they're the ones who get laid off. And it's really hard to find another job when the first question is, well, what does your book of business look like? And they say, ooh, I don't have one. So I
Oh, see, that's a good.
encourage people that no matter what they tell you at your firm, no matter what they tell you about how we just want you to work on these clients, we don't want you to go to that event, we don't want you to go to that conference, we don't want you to write that article. They're not looking out for you and your long-term career. They're looking out for that moment at their firm. And just like they might not be so loyal when things slow down at the firm, you can't only think of the firm where you currently work. You have to think about your long-term career from now until when you're done practicing law. How are you going to maximize the opportunities you have? And one easy way to do that is to have your own clients. Because if you don't like how things are going at your firm, you can pack up your toys and go home anytime you want. You just go to another firm and you bring your clients. And firms tend to treat those rainmakers a little bit better because they know that they have the opportunity to move somewhere else. They
Because
don't
you're not going to be
want
attracted to another firm.
them, right?
Yeah.
They know
Yeah.
that
No,
they get calls all the time. Every time they're at a cocktail party, somebody's saying, hey, Lisa, if you ever want to switch firms, we have a place for you here. So firms have to treat you a little bit better when you're being sought after all the time.
no, I love that. That is the same. That's exactly. So I think that what I kind of preach from the mountain is that you have to be your own brand.
Yes.
You have to, and that's not just in direct sales. That's all. Even if you're an employee that's working hourly somewhere, if you're not trying to be your own brand in a way, you're shortchanging yourself, because at some point you're probably going to have to get a different job. At some point, you're going to have to impress somebody where you want to work, and you're going to need that. Yeah, I love that about the if they don't have their own clients. That makes so much sense
Yeah.
because you want to be able to be attracted to another firm,
Right.
and you could get more money at your firm for that.
If you have your own clients and you decide you don't enjoy working at a larger firm, you can hang out a shingle and have your own firm. You can join up with your friend from law school and have a small firm. You can move across the country and be somewhere else with your spouse. There are so many opportunities that are in front of you. When you don't have your own clients, you're a little bit I think limited in how many
You're at the
opportunities.
mercy of the other people that do have the client. Is it like real estate where there has to be like a broker? Is there like a senior lawyer, or any lawyer can go hang a shingle out?
No, I don't think it sounds like real estate. Any lawyer, and sometimes right out of school they do that, which is
No,
to me
okay.
that would be scary. Can you
Yeah.
imagine coming right out of school and say, "Hey, come use me"? I
Well, if
I
you're not a team player, I can see it though.
I was very glad to have more senior people to learn from when I was just starting out, but some people are more entrepreneurial than I was at the time, and they start with their own firm straight out of school. They knew they went to get that law degree because they had a concept in mind of the kind of law firm they wanted to have. I mean, I guess I didn't realize how entrepreneurial I was until I started this company, and I love it. And it's so much fun to do all the strategy and the marketing and all of that, which I never thought I would want to. So I stayed at the other company doing the opposite side of what I really wanted to do because I was reluctant. I was thinking, oh, I don't know if I'm going to enjoy that or not. I kind of wish I had realized how much I would enjoy it a little bit earlier.
You'd have done it sooner. You
Yeah.
think you'd have done it sooner? Yeah,
Yeah, I
that's
mean, my
neat.
kids are getting to just be the right age for me to be working a little bit harder, a little bit more around the clock. So the timing was good, but I just wanted to be a good example for them too. I wanted them to know that if you're not entirely happy with what you're doing, you can create something else. You don't have to sit there and complain about it. You can figure out a way to change it.
You know, it's funny in my, it's been the same as the rule with, I've got a generator now for my house because I live in rural New Hampshire. It's been like an immunity shot. So we haven't lost power since I had the generator. But you know what? That's worked the same in my career. I've had a backup plan and a backup for the backups plan for the last 40 years. And that's what's when I go to networking groups where there's a lot of direct sellers or in network marketing, I'm the unusual one because I've been with one company for 40 years. Most people jump around a lot. So I think it's because of the backup plan. When you have one, you don't need it,
Yeah,
like the
well,
generator.
that makes sense. One of the exercises we do in the business coaching program I'm part of is like 25 ways for fast cash or something. You're supposed to make a list of, or it might be 50 ways, I think. You make a list of all the things you could do, like work related and then non-work related. You could house sit, you could walk dogs, you could get a part-time job, you could do this and that. And I found earlier on when I was doing it, when I was just starting up, a lot of it was kind of non-business related. And thankfully it's turning a little bit more, I do have a skill set that's transferable to other things. And it's good to know that there are other options out there, but I hope I don't have to use them. I really like what I'm doing now.
Yeah, well, I bet you'd find a way to do it some other way if that came up. But I don't know. It sounds like you're not going to have a problem. That's the generator rule. See, you won't need a backup because you've got the generator.
I guess
Anyway, I
that's
have one last. Well, go ahead.
go ahead.
Yeah, I have one last question for you. We went an hour already. I'm so thankful that you spent some time with us today and your wisdom. I really appreciate it. And my one last question is brownies, cookies, or sea salt caramels? What is your choice?
That is so nice of you. And I really enjoyed it. Didn't feel like an hour at all. It was so much fun talking with you. And I
Oh,
hope it
thank
was
you.
helpful to anybody who is listening. I have just overindulged during the Thanksgiving holiday, but my kids particularly like brownies. So I'll have to say,
Oh, well, I use the send out card
oh
service,
yeah.
and
So
they are well known for their brownies. That is their number one seller. So I'll send enough for the kids. And by the way, you can freeze them if you want.
well,
If the holidays go by and you need them for later, you can always freeze some.
well, thank you very much. That's so kind of you. I had such a good time. I feel like I should be sending you some brownies instead.
Oh, no. Well, thank you. And I hope to see you on Wednesday. If you stay right there a moment, I'll connect with you in the green room just for a moment and I'll turn off the recording. Thank you, everybody. And I'll be back in 15 minutes to do the send out cards training. Okay. Thank you, everybody.